Welcome to the Health Angle Podcast with Dr. Mike Headlee and Dr. Gordon Fimreite, where we'll be exploring different angles of health to achieve the best version of yourself. Now here's your hosts, Dr. Mike and Dr. Gordon.
Welcome everybody, I'm Dr. Mike Headlee and with me is Dr. Gordon Fimreite. Welcome Dr. Gordy.
Hey Dr. Mike, and welcome everybody. Today's subject it's about alcohol actually. So is alcohol good or bad for your body? So that's what we'll be discussing, and we're going to dive in some facts. And I think if people stay tuned long enough, they might be surprised by some of the information that we'll present. So stay tuned and welcome to the Health Angle Podcast.
This one is a little bit of a tricky topic because we've talked about the blue zones here a few episodes ago, and on there, they recommend, a glass of wine a night and happy hour in moderate drinking or social drinking will improve your longevity and quality of life. And so it's like, oh, okay, I'll just grab any glass of wine or I'll grab a beer or a whiskey at night and it's harmless and it's not a big deal. So that's what I want to talk about and dive in, and a little bit about the contradictions. And as always, we talk about the quality of things and the quantity of things, and the little details matter. So if you're just going to go have some Bud Light or some Miller Lite or something and think that's okay, just real quick, what are grains sprayed with? We talk about glyphosate and all the chemicals and all the other alcohols that are made with grains and impurities in those. And alcohol is a depressant and it's dehydrating, and there's no label of any alcohol product out there that labels the impurities or toxins or chemicals that are allowed in that bottle or can or whatever. And so that's just a huge, contradiction to say, the computer screen says alcohol is great for longevity and it's social and it's fun. So I'm excited to dive into some details and some science, what it really does to the body, and is it really good or bad for us?
That's good. Good point, Mike. So I'm going to go over about 10 points. I'm going to start with 5 and pass it to you. But, I think we all know someone who's struggling with alcoholism or who is an alcoholic. And we can see some horrible things that are happening to these people. I was kind of lucky because I grew up with my father who didn't really drink a lot. He'd have beer for social once in a while. But when we were growing up, he'd let us have a sip if we wanted to, which, I should be bragging about his parenthood because maybe it was a kind of a psychological thing to let us have alcohol. So we think that it tastes gross, it's awful, we don't want it, and we don't as adults. I'd love to think that my dad was that insightful, but probably not. But he'd let us drink it, and we're like, this stuff is awful. And not only that, but we had a taste of it, and we could have it if we wanted. Behind his back, but we never did. He trusted us and we could feel that, and it wasn't an issue. But then you see some people, I have a buddy who had really strict parents. He was probably the biggest alcohol drinker because he felt as if he was getting away with something. So anyway, I found that kind of interesting. Anyway, First point, brain and mental health. Alcohol, like you said, Dr. Mike, is a depressant, and it can worsen the symptoms of anxiety and depression. And I think with anxiety and depression becoming so prevalent today and people trying to mask it with alcohol, bad choice, even if you're only doing it moderately. Regular drinking shrinks the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain, and it's tied to memory and learning. And that's basically at night is when the brain is processing with memories and learning and cognitive function. So heavy drinkers are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop dementia than those that don't. As far as heart health, the ideal that a glass of wine, like you said, is good for you, that really has been debunked. Recent large studies show that there's no safe level of alcohol for a healthy heart, and that was in Lancet of 2018. In fact, basically alcohol increases your blood pressure, can cause irregularities in the heartbeat, as well as been shown to increase the risk for strokes. And what they found in red wine to think that it was healthy was basically three major antioxidants called resveratrol, polyphenols, and flavonoids. But the reality is you can get those three antioxidants more reliable through supplementation or vitamins than you could through all the negatives that you would deal with alcohol. Third point is cancer connection. This is really not discussed at all. I remember when I was in Chicago, Mike, there was a security that worked in our building. I worked in a high rise. His name was Mike. And Mike would tell me these stories. He goes, he must have been about 65 to 70. He goes, I have all these friends, and all my friends have passed away. They used to, after work, they'd go get a drink, they'd drink. And Mike put two and two together when he was young enough and healthy enough to realize that the connection could very well be alcohol. So he quit drinking. But I thought it was an interesting story that most of his friends were gone either because of heart disease or cancer. Alcohol is a group 1 carcinogen. Now, a carcinogen is cancer causing. Alcohol is a group 1 in the same category as asbestos and tobacco. And I don't think most people know that. And it's linked to 7 types of cancer, including breast cancer, liver cancer, colon and rectum cancer, throat, mouth, and esophagus cancer. And just one drink a day raises cancer risk up to about 7 to 10%. So someone says, hey, I'm going to take a flight on vacation. And another person said, well, that flight, there's a 7 to 10% chance that flight might crash. More than likely, you wouldn't take the flight. Drinking alcohol raises breast cancer by 7 to 10%.
Wow.
So Mike, I'm at number 4. I'm going to pass it back to you.
That's huge, Gordy. That if you really dive into it, instead of just watch TV and sporting events and half times of shows, and here's why even moderate drinking is harming your health. Alcohol negatively impacts multiple body systems, including mitochondria function, which we talked about in our podcast, how to optimize your mitochondria. It impacts your gut health. We've talked about how to improve your gut health. It impacts your hormone balance and nutrient levels, specifically B vitamins. It just trashes and really eliminates B vitamin levels. It significantly increases cancer risk, as you said, contributing to 1 in 3 cancers, my report says. 1 in 3. That's crazy. The alcohol industry's moderation guidelines are misleading. If Americans followed these, alcohol sales would drop 70 to 80%. So overconsumption is so widespread. A growing sober curious movement, though, recognizes the benefits of reducing or eliminating alcohol consumption. About 41% of Americans are currently looking to quit or cut back. And so I'm curious, Dr. Gordy, I know you're pretty recently moved to the South. In Bemidji, where I live, they just started a mocktail shop where it's all non-alcoholic. We aren't big enough to probably to have a non-alcoholic bar, even though you can get non-alcoholic stuff at every bar. But I know in the Minneapolis, for instance, they have alcohol mocktail, no alcohol bars only. And then I was in another town, went to see my parents recently. We stopped at another town on the way home, and there's a 0% alcohol store. So these mocktail shops are popping up all over. And at the co-op where we shop, you can get non-alcoholic wine and other things. And that's a whole nother topic, probably all the sugars and chemicals and things in those. So, what's a healthy mocktail? Water, electrolyte drink, there's a lot of smoothies. There's a lot of really good mocktails out there, but they have to be whole food, no chemicals based. So, I'm curious, have you seen any 0% alcohol stores or mocktail shops around where you've lived right now?
Well, I'm saying, Mike, I think you've taught me something because I really haven't. And I know in downtown Chicago, I mean, drinking was a thing. It's a social thing. It's a after work thing. It's a big thing there, and it's a sports city. Also, drinks are associated with that. And then being in Auburn, Alabama, it's a big college city. I haven't really seen those stores. However, what I do see is an abundance of coffee shops. Those are all over the place. So maybe a little bit different than those types of stores. But hey, at least they're trying to gear people in a different direction. So I'll go on to number 4, sleep sabotage. While you're sleeping, there's a part of the phase of sleep called the REM, it stands for rapid eye movement. And during this sleep, this is where your body processes emotions and stress. So basically, REM sleep is like the nightly emotional detox of your body. So alcohol also increases nighttime awakenings and early morning grogginess. Number 5, immune system suppresses your immune system function for up to 24 hours after drinking alcohol. Alcohol suppresses the white blood cells, which are intimately related to the immune system and those protective qualities up to that 24-hour period. So what happens, your body's more susceptible to colds and flus, and it tends to spike midweek, Tuesday or Wednesday. So everyone binges, like on the weekend, for example, and sure enough, they might have those hangovers on Sunday, but they end up with a cold on Tuesday. And you look at that during the holiday season, the Christmas and the New Year, everybody's out celebrating, staying up late, bad for the immune system, eating bad foods, bad for the immune system, drinking alcohol, bad for the immune system. And when do they end up with colds and flus? Typically January. And so I think there's a big correlation between the two. Number 6, Dr. Mike, after this one, I'll throw it back to you, but body composition. It contributes to visceral fat gain. And we've all seen beer bellies. Both men and women tend to get them if they're drinking too much alcohol. So you get muscle loss as a result, and it really has a negative impact on the hormone imbalances. So back to you, Mike.
Yeah, that's just really common sense. Like you said, during the holidays, staying up late, bad food, bad junk, increased sugar, travel, all these things. And then you wash it down and we think we're all celebrating the new year, but then we wake up and start the new year off sick and not doing well. So yeah, maybe this will spur some people to think about how they really celebrate birthdays and anniversaries and holidays and New Year's. So great information there, Gordy. I have an article here. Beer and cider significantly increase gout risk, especially in men. A recent large-scale study reveals even light to moderate alcohol consumption increases gout risk, with beer and spirits showing the strongest link. Men face higher risks than women. Alcohol disrupts your gut microbiome, damaging beneficial bacteria that help break down purines, leading to increased uric acid buildup and higher gout risk. So gout really means early kidney failure. So you're putting all these chemicals and toxins in rich food and alcohol, just liquid poison, liquid toxins, and our kidneys are so plugged up and they can't purify that. Our liver's plugged up, can't purify that. And then these crystals get lodged the farthest away from our body in our big toes often. And it's painful. I've had patients come in and they tell me they can't put the sheet on their toes at night because it's just so much pain. So you mentioned a lot of other health issues with drinking, but gout is a big one, especially for men. So what else you got, Gordy?
Alcohol changes your DNA. So, the alcohol can change the epigenetic changes. It alters the way your genes basically express themselves without really changing the DNA itself. So these changes are linked to risk of mental illness, addiction, even passing the effects to your children via sperm and eggs. So my number 8 on the list is one night of drinking affects sperm up to months. So the alcohol damages sperm up to 3 months. So if young couples are trying to get pregnant and they're finding themselves, difficult time conceiving, well, you might want to lay off alcohol if it's in your lifestyle. So if men regularly drink, it's tied to lower testosterone as well, poor fertility, and increased risk of birth defects in offsprings. And then my number 9 is anxiety. It's real and it's neurological. So post-drinking anxiety, some people feel, it's got a name. It's called hang-anxiety, kind of a play off of hangover and anxiety. So hang-anxiety is caused by the rebound overactivity of your nervous system after alcohol's sedative effect wears off. So you're not just regretting those texts, but you're literally in a neurochemical storm. And then finally, alcohol is processed like a poison in your body. Your body treats alcohol as toxin. So the body prioritizes metabolizing alcohol as a toxin before anything else, even processing foods that you eat or getting the nutrients that you're trying to get. Your body handles the toxins first. So that way your body just basically is burning those fats, burning the nutrients. And I have a story of a friend who was a flight attendant, and she wanted to look good. She wanted to look trim. The only problem is she also loved alcohol. But she would sacrifice by drinking alcohol, but skipping meals constantly. She must have been maybe upper 30s, and she ended up having a heart attack, and she didn't make it. And she was just normally pretty healthy. She just had an awful habit of skipping meals because she wanted to look trim, but she didn't want to skip the alcohol, and it basically cost her life.
That's too bad.
So basically, in summary, alcohol presses pause on your metabolism to save your organs from poison. So back to you, Mike.
Wow, that's sad, Gordy. And I know, nicotine can suppress appetite. And I mean, drugs are drugs. They all have an effect. They don't have a side effect. I mean, they have an effect on the body, and got to really think about what drugs you're putting on or in your body on a regular basis, because it can come back to haunt you. Alcoholism epidemic in the U.S. More than 1 in 8 Americans are now alcoholics. Alcohol-related problems cost an estimated $300 billion a year in the United States. I mean, it's just crazy amounts. DUIs, when I was growing up, I was afraid to get a DUI if I was out partying or whatever, because it was expensive. But I mean, it's $15,000-$20,000 sometimes, and you can't drive to work. You get that permanent stain on your license. You could risk your life and other licenses. It's just not a cheap thing to drink and drive and just get that habit. And it's like, wow. Right next to my office, there's a recovery center for drugs and alcohol, and people are going there. There's ways to reach out and get help. I have a couple other strategies for reducing alcohol intake, including just educating, listening to this, and then doing your own research and really saying, like, wow, that's really harsh on my health. So educate yourself. Ask for community support. There's support groups for sure, in churches and in the community, and addressing the root cause. Why do you need to drink every day? Why are you binge drinking? Look at the cause. One thing I like about our degree, Dr. Gordy, is DC, Doctor of Chiropractic, stands for Doctor of Cause. So we're always looking for causes. Nutritional support and reframing your relationship with alcohol as a positive health choice, and just really, really pausing and going, hey, I can go out and socialize and party and dance and hang out with friends and have one drink or a two, or social or mocktails, or be the designated driver, still be in the group and the clubs and listen to music and go to concerts. But do I have to wake up hungover? Do I have to get sick a few days later? Do I have to call in sick? Do I have to risk other people's lives and my life and DUIs and all that? So it's one other thing about recovery, they talk about exercise may ameliorate some risks. Chronic drinkers who exercise 5 hours a week have the same rate of mortality as those who never drink alcohol, in part by counteracting the inflammation caused by alcohol. So maybe that, if you're really considering drinking and having a hard time, but you exercise, 5 hours a week to try to get you through that so it's not harming you as good, and then really find the root causes and have strategies to really reduce that over drinking. So there are ways you can do it and be healthy and recover and rebound and regenerate the body. But bottom line is you can't just drink excessively. And all of the influencers, Dr. Gordy, that I've ever studied with and read books on, Dave Asprey, heavily meditated. I'm reading his book, and some of them are social drinkers, and there's dry farm wines, and there's other ways to have zero impurities in it, and you can have it on a keto diet, et cetera, or drink mocktails that are healthy. Um, but most of the influencers say, you can't overdrink and be healthy and well and be successful and happy and have a great relationship, and
Mhm.
it just doesn't work. There's no books out there and self-help books that say, yeah, drink as much as you want, it doesn't matter, it's healthy, you just wake up and sober up the next day. No, I mean, there's no really powerful influencers that were long-lasting successes in influencing the masses that were just heavy, heavy, heavy drinkers. Might be famous artists, famous musicians for a while, famous people, but deep down, like, I don't want to follow someone who fell asleep in the ditch over there or behind the wheel, and it looks 25 years older than they are because they just drink themselves to sleep every night. So
Mhm.
it's not a cool thing anymore to drink yourself stupid.
Yeah, no doubt. I had a roommate years ago when I first moved to Chicago, and he used to drink a lot, but he finally got help. He realized he had a problem, and he went to AA, Alcoholic Anonymous. And as a result of that, it changed his life. And most of the people in AA are extremely successful. They transferred their quest to drink alcohol to the quest to become a better person, to build their lives, become a better business person, a better husband, father, or mother, daughter, for that matter. So it really changed his life, and he did some great things after that. And all his attention was on, building and growing. So AA is a wonderful tool for people. And I've seen a firsthand change and convert people's lives. So I have some quick stats, Mike, and then I'm pretty much done in my section. It's interesting you said that the US economy basically is losing billions annually because of productivity due to hangovers and alcohol-related activities. Even low-level regular drinking can cause cognitive fog and lower work performance. And 1 out of 20 deaths worldwide is due to alcohol use. That's according to the World Health Organization. Alcohol is responsible for 10% of all deaths among working aged adults in America. Alcohol contributes to 40% of violent crimes, 50% of sexual assaults. 1 out of 10 people who drink will develop alcohol use disorder. AUD is a medical condition where a person has impaired ability to stop or control alcohol use. Alcohol is one of the few substances where withdrawal can actually kill you. And how? Alcohol withdrawal affects the autonomic nervous system, which controls heart rate, blood pressure, temperatures. So basically, if you suddenly stop drinking, putting that brake on, once that's removed, the gas pedal is still floored, unfortunately. When those systems spiral out of control, that's what leads to organ failure and cardiac arrest. And then my final point here is alcohol is the third leading preventable cause of death in the United States after tobacco and poor diet. So if alcohol were discovered today, Mike, it would likely be banned, or it would be more or less prescription only, because that's how toxic it is.
Yeah, that's it's just common, I drove by on the way home tonight, and we have every Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m., we have musicians down by the waterfront, and there's a really famous jazz guitarist down there with his band, and beautiful night for watching that. And they have a beer garden there, and I don't have a problem with that because it's designated and it's a family friendly event. And so if you want to drink some beers, you go on this certain area, and and if I presented this to that crowd, they'd like, wow, I don't think I'd get beat up, but they'd probably pour a beer on my head or something and say, quit being a prude or something like that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't socialize and have fun and have a beer, but it's just like overeating and being 50 pounds and 100 pounds overweight. I mean, it's affecting your life and your work and your family and your bills and your health care. And it's affecting you when you just over drink and over consume. And I'm going to get pushback when the Blue Zone says, have a glass of wine in Sardinia, in Costa Rica, and, in Greece. They drink wine and they live longer on average than everyone else. But if it's in their genetics and they drink biodynamic wine almost everywhere outside the US, meaning they don't spray chemicals and pesticides and glyphosate on the grapes, and they process it and harvest it in a sustainable way, and they drink it because it's fermented and it helps their digestion. So when I was in Spain, and you know this, Dr. Gordy, you're in Spain out for lunch and business people walking in and they're having their glass of wine at lunch. You're like, what are they drinking and going back to work for? It's just how they grew up. They grew up drinking wine at 10, 12, 13 years old, whatever it was. But they didn't just guzzle big box wines and they didn't guzzle the bottle. They're having this social business meeting and having a glass of wine with their meal, and it's mostly a digestive aid and a social thing, instead of like, hey, I want to get a buzz at lunch so I can go back to the office and search social media and have a buzz at work. It's just a different mindset, and they can get away with it, I believe. And instead of in America, all the pesticide chemicals going down and just all the cheap Bud Light, Miller Light, and all the other Coors Light and it's all just cheap poison, toxin, glyphosate type beer and gluten, filled. So you have to go with quality and think about quantity. And what do you put in aspartame Diet Coke with your rum, or just regular Coke and rum? And what are you mixing it with it? What's in that schnapps? What's in Mike's Hard Lemonade? Is it really pure organic lemonade and a little vodka? Maybe it's okay if they sell organic everything today. So are you having mixed drinks and making a martini with organic gin or vodka? Well, then maybe it's probably okay with a couple olives in it and you have your vitamins and you hydrate well. Yeah, I mean, Gordy, you could have a beer tonight if it's healthy and well, and you aren't even going to notice it tomorrow. But, if you had six every night, you'd start to notice it. And so that's just what I want to get a point is quality and quantity. And if you're at high risk for heart and brain and cancer, really consider getting some help and reaching out and doing the other things we talk about, eating well and moving well and thinking well and optimizing your sleep and having fun and meditating and doing all those other things. But this is a big, 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 big toxin in people's lives. And it's just a social thing. And so we just blow that off. Say, oh, I don't want those seed oils. I don't want to eat that McDonald's, but give me a six pack of Miller Lite and I'll go to town on it. So
Yeah.
it's a tough topic to talk about because it's not super popular to say, oh, alcohol's not good for you. And so
Yeah.
just reevaluate the quality and quantity, I guess, is what I'm saying, summarizing it. And if you think your quality and quantity is okay and you're healthy and well and your doctor says you don't have no risk factors, hey, well, go for it then.
Yeah, it's such a social thing today. It's hard to avoid. But I remember doing a speech, and one of the audience members said, "Hey, I can't live this way. I'd rather die," or something. He was saying something smart. Point was that, well, how can I live then? Well, the bottom line is there's a lot of good things you can do to find healthier alternatives. Sometimes we do this podcast and you think, you can't live a normal life because there's so many restrictions on the water you drink, the alcohol, the type of supplements you take, or the food, the preservatives, the additives. But the reality is there's choices if you just know the avenues to take. Basically, I said, yeah, we all going to die. You got to die of something. But reality is it could increase your longevity by 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I mean, that's priceless. Just doing small things to find avenues that can make you healthy. And I have no problem having a beer once in a while. As I get older, I find that I just don't like to drink alcohol as much. Or sometimes my wife will order wine and I'll get like a on cola or something. And then we'll get a third glass and then we'll split the two. And kind of like a spritzer, and we'll do that every so often. But once in a great while, fine, but in moderation, of course. So back to you,
Yeah,
Mike.
I agree too, Dr. Gordy. I mean, it's just common sense. And, one last thing on that. I'm not lecturing anyone, quite frankly. We all have to live our own lives and we're all going to die, like you said, but I don't want to waste many days. If I don't feel well, I want to get in my sauna or do an Epsom salt bath and take my vitamins or get adjusted and, do some health providing, see a different natural health provider or whatever. I don't want to waste my days and say, oh my gosh, my Saturdays and Sundays, I got to recover from the headaches and the hangovers, and I can't just go walk the dog or go for a bike ride or go to the football game because I'm just hungover. And so that's a big part of it for me. I always want to be on. If you call me, don't call me tonight at 3 a.m., but if someone called me at 3 a.m., I don't have to sober up to say, hey, talk to me, come find me, come get me. Like I don't have to waste too many hours of my life because I'm kind of always plugged in and ready to go. I might not look the healthiest and fittest, whatever, but let me tell you, I'll be there for you, and I'm not going to be hungover and drugged up, and you can count on me to be right there if I'm needed. So I just feel good about that too. And then I like cutting out a lot of risks, the big ones, the dementias and the cancers and the heart disease. Those are biggies. So anything I can do to cut those risks out, then I have a better chance of having a quality and quantity of life. So.
Great point, Mike. Awesome.
Well, as we finish up our podcast, I usually say, what's your number one takeaway that you can share with a family member, right? You don't have to do interventions. I'm not saying go to AA tomorrow. I'm not saying go pour all your alcohol out of your pantry tonight, but I'm just saying, what's your number one takeaway that you can share with a family member about alcohol? Number two, what's your action step? Are you going to look up what mocktails are if you don't know what they are? What are you going to do? Are you going to do what Dr. Gordy does and make your own spritzer and celebrate once in a while and have stuff in moderation instead of ordering cases or pallets of box wine and just chugging them down when your football team doesn't win? Or what are you going to do? What's your action step that you can take today?
Awesome podcast, Mike. Thanks for joining us here on the Health Angle podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Please like our content. Hit that notification bell. Until next week, we'll see you then for another episode on the Health Angle podcast.
Thank you for joining us on the Health Angle podcast. Please subscribe to our channel and catch us for our next episode.